As an 18-year-old college student, I thought I was pretty street smart. I had taken countless Uber rides without any issues, so when I called for a ride one cold, dark night, I didn't expect what was about to unfold. The title of my harrowing tale is Terrifying Uber Encounter, a night of creepy questions and a disturbing message. The evening started like any other. I huddled on the dimly lit sidewalk, my breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. My Uber app indicated that my ride was just a minute away. I spotted a car pulling up, and the familiar Uber logo on the windshield confirmed it was my ride. I slid into the back seat, and the driver, a middle-aged man with graying hair, gave me a polite smile. But something about his demeanor felt off from the start. His eyes were cold, and his gaze lingered on me for a moment too long. I dismissed it as nerves, but as we started driving, his unsettling behavior became impossible to ignore. He began asking personal questions that no Uber driver had ever asked me before. He inquired about where I lived, my age, and whether I lived alone. Each question sent shivers down my spine, and I tried to keep my answers vague. I could feel his eyes on me in the rearview mirror. The minutes dragged on, and my discomfort grew. The driver took an unexpected turn, away from my destination. Panic surged through me as I realized we were heading in the opposite direction. I demanded to know what was going on, my voice trembling. The driver finally spoke, his voice dripping with malice. "I think we should stop at my place. I have something to show you." The words hung in the air, thick with menace. I knew I had to get out of that car, but the thought of jumping out onto the dark, deserted street filled me with dread. My heart pounded in my chest as I weighed my options. Summoning all the courage I could muster, I quickly undid my seatbelt and flung the door open. The driver cursed and reached for me, but I managed to slip out. I slammed the door shut and ran, my heart racing, my breath coming in ragged gasps. As I reached a nearby convenience store, I realized I had left my phone in the car. I couldn't call for help, but I knew I had to report this driver. I borrowed a phone from a sympathetic stranger and dialed the Uber support line. They assured me they would investigate the incident and take the appropriate action. The nightmarish ordeal had ended, or so I thought. A few days later, I received a chilling message on my phone. It was from the same Uber driver. He knew my name, my address, and even sent me a photo of my own home. The message read, "I'll find you." Terrified, I reported the message to the police, and they launched a full investigation. They arrested the driver, who turned out to have a history of stalking and harassment. I was lucky to have escaped his clutches. The lesson from my harrowing experience is clear. Always trust your instincts and be cautious, even when using ride-sharing services. If something feels off, don't hesitate to act to protect yourself. The night I encountered the Uber driver from hell will haunt me forever, but I hope my story serves as a cautionary tale for others. Your safety should always be your top priority, no matter how routine a situation may seem. The night was thick with darkness as I cruised through the quiet streets, my Uber app alerting me to another pickup. I'd driven these late hours countless times, and it was always the same routine. Pick up the passenger, make some small talk, and drop them off at their destination. Little did I know that this particular ride would be unlike any other, forever etched into my memory. As I approached the dimly lit street corner, I saw my passenger standing there, bathed in an eerie, almost supernatural glow. Their hood was pulled low, concealing most of their face. I rolled down my window and asked, "Are you my passenger?" The hooded figure nodded, and their voice was a mere whisper as they gave me an address in a distant, unfamiliar neighborhood. I couldn't see their face clearly, but something about their presence sent shivers down my spine. Reluctantly, I started the ride and followed their directions. The further we went, the more I realized that this was no ordinary journey. The streets grew narrower, the houses more decrepit, and the silence in the air was deafening. It was as if we were driving into a different world, one far removed from the city I knew. My passenger, still hidden in the shadows, began to speak in hushed tones, telling me about the destination. They described it as a place of darkness and secrets where unimaginable horrors lurked. Their words were laden with an eerie sincerity, and I couldn't help but feel a growing unease. As we approached the destination, I knew I had a choice to make. Something inside me screamed to turn around and leave this nightmare behind, but a strange compulsion held me in place. The passengers' presence weighed heavily on my conscience, and I couldn't bring myself to abandon them in this ominous place. Finally, we arrived at a desolate, overgrown property that looked abandoned for years. The passenger instructed me to stop, and I did. As they stepped out of the car, they turned and said in a hauntingly calm voice, "You've done your part. Now you can leave." I didn't need a second invitation. I sped away from that place, my heart pounding and my mind filled with dread. What had I been a part of? What had I just witnessed? The dark turn of events haunted me, and I couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt that consumed me. The following day, I saw a news report about a gruesome crime that had taken place in that very neighborhood. It was the same destination my passenger had led me to, and the details were too horrifying to comprehend. The guilt weighed on my shoulders like a heavy burden. I couldn't escape the realization that I had unwittingly played a role in delivering someone to their doom. As I share this story with you, dear listener, I can't help but wonder if there was any way I could have prevented that tragedy. The advice I have to offer is simple, but crucial. Always trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Your safety and the safety of others should be your utmost priority. Sometimes it's better to err on the side of caution, even if it means making a tough decision to protect yourself. My journey as an Uber driver took a dark turn that fateful night, and it's a path I will never forget. I hope that by sharing this chilling experience, I can remind you that sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that happen in the real world, and they serve as a haunting reminder to be vigilant and trust your gut, no matter how ordinary the night may seem. It was a dark and stormy night, the kind that sends shivers down your spine and makes your heart race with fear. I had just finished a late-night shift and desperately needed a ride home, so I reached for my phone and called a Lyft. The rain pounded against the window as I watched the car icon on my screen inch closer. Finally, a white sedan pulled up, and I rushed towards it, grateful to escape the torrential downpour. I got into the car and was met with an eerie sight. The driver was a middle-aged man with a long, unkempt beard. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes hollow and vacant. But that wasn't the strangest part. The back seat was occupied by another passenger, a young woman, drenched from head to toe, with wild, soaking hair covering her face. She sat silently, staring blankly ahead. My unease grew as the driver started the car without a word. The only sound in the car was the relentless rain outside. I checked my phone to see if I had the right Lyft, but it confirmed that this was indeed my ride. "Excuse me," I finally spoke up, my voice trembling. "Are we going the right way?" The driver ignored me, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. The woman in the back remained silent, her presence haunting. Panic surged within me. My heart pounded in my chest, and I knew I had to escape this eerie situation. I fumbled for the door handle, and as I pulled it, the driver suddenly hit the brakes. The car screeched to a halt, and I was thrown forward. "Get out," the driver said, his voice monotone, devoid of any emotion. I didn't hesitate. I flung open the door and jumped out of the car, landing on the wet pavement. The rain soaked me instantly, but I didn't care. I watched as the Lyft sped away, disappearing into the rainy night. I was drenched and shivering, but at least I was safe. Or so I thought. I flagged down another car and got in, feeling a mix of relief and fear. The new driver looked at me with concern and asked what had happened. I told him the strange story of the Lyft ride, and he listened intently. As we drove through the pouring rain, he glanced at his phone and went silent. He pulled over and turned to me, his eyes wide with shock. "I don't know how to tell you this, but the car you were in was reported stolen a few hours ago," he said. My heart sank and my mind raced. The Lyft driver and the mysterious drenched passenger were criminals on the run. The rain continued to pour and my fear deepened. I had narrowly escaped a potentially dangerous situation, and the twisted reality of it all was horrifying. In the end, I made it home safely, but the night's events haunted my dreams. My advice to anyone out there is to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't hesitate to take action and protect yourself, even if it means jumping out of a moving car on a rainy night. Your safety is worth more than any ride.